Accuity is a data-driven technology business that focuses in three specific areas: bad guy detection, KYC, and payment routing. Effectively, they all kind of come together to ensure that our customers have payment certainty and payment safety. I think PSD2 has the possibility of being quite a catalytic event in the industry. Certainly it's going to open up the banking platforms to a wider group of technology players. And for us, we think it's going to be quite interesting. As consumers have greater choice, they're going to have a wider range of innovation offered to them, and you're going to see a greater path towards banks collaborating with fintechs at a higher rate. I think the consumer ultimately is going to have a greater range of choice and a wider range of products that they can have to access financial products. I think it actually creates some interesting possibilities for financial institutions and fintech alike. As we see greater participation or collaboration between fintechs and banks, in many ways, for those banks, you're getting increased opportunities that weren't available to them. A reach to a customer base that was too far afield or in exotic parts of the world that they wouldn't dream of touching, given their kind of risk profile or their customer range. Certainly there's opportunities for fintechs as they kind of have access to the financial institutions and their accounts. So I think there's interesting possibilities all the way around. Well, certainly. Ultimately, the customer has to have ultimate consent to allow these transactions. But I think the regulatory framework needs to be examined as well. Financial institutions are well placed in kind of understanding what they need to do to ensure the customers' privacies are protected, their accounts are safe, and that there's no kind of someone trying to overtly take control of those accounts. As you widen this net of open platforms to fintechs, that range of security has to be kind of extended into that range of fintechs as well. And I think that the greater use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to kind of understand the changing landscape of risk and spotting perhaps illicit behavior much sooner is going to become more important. A very big part of Accutity's business is to make sure that payments are safely routed. So there's an element to make sure that the actual transaction goes through in a smooth behavior that's consistent with a customer expectation. But core to that is that there's a safety underlying that the participants, whether it's fintech, the financial institutions, or the clearing and settlement mechanisms all the way through, have the proper diligence and rigors around looking at those transactions, making sure that they're not involving any kind of bad actors or aren't having illicit transaction behaviors that might be the result of fraud, for example. So I think an interesting case studies are some that we've been announcing this week at Money20, where Accuity has been actually kind of collaborating itself with fintechs who have emerged their business models from classic remittances businesses, for example, into a more prominent role in payment service providers, and where we help the fintech in this era of collaboration with the financial institutions is to provide them payment routing solutions so that they know they can settle the transaction more effectively, especially as they expand beyond just their closed networks and to domestic systems in bank clearing. We also make sure that those transactions are screened appropriately for regulatory compliance and AML. So really this fintech effectively, and there's a collection of them, are really kind of embracing and doing many of the same things that financial institutions have long been doing for about a decade. And I think that actually fosters a greater comfort level between this, and I think it will actually drive the success to some of these players. And to go to market, Accuity has classically played in the financial institutions. Now we're having to change the way we message, the way we market, the way we sell to understand the needs and behaviors of fintech. They operate slightly differently, their buying decisions are slightly different. From our innovation, we're making sure that we're not only thinking about today's problems, but tomorrow's problems as well. So we've developed streams that are specifically looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning to really drive at the heart of some core problems that still exist in bad guy screening, for example, which is the nature of false positives. How can we get those down to an absolutely manageable level, especially as a greater level of less experienced participants in the financial supply chain start to play a larger role. Another area of examination is kind of understanding that interplay between fintech, bank, and how PSD2 is going to evolve the needs in terms of payments. We're seeing perhaps the shift away from some very classic mechanisms. In fact, some countries are eliminating currency and instead going to a completely electronic experience. What does that mean in terms of that entire payment suite? So we're trying to make sure that we're thoughtfully applying our innovation to serve those needs as well.